It's always a fantastic visit to the Mediterranean, even if it isn't France or Italy. Dragon Trail, once again, Croatia's fine facility for World Super Touring action. Round three races 5 and 6, and we have some news to share. We finished Bathurst in mind that Jean Ayalo uh, won, well, effectively came out of Bathurst, cars back in the back of the truck with 3 wins to his name. However, we all saw the incident with him and Anthony Ingram in the Volvo, as did the organisers. What the organisers have done is that in race one, Ayalo has been effectively disqualified from race one. Long and the short of it is, a lot of the competitors, a handful of the more vociferous competitors, we're not going to name names here, um, got a little bit heated. We're asking, wait a minute, if Ayalo's disqualified from race one, how was he still starting 10th for race two? Shouldn't he have started at the back of the grid? Ergo, not got the win for race two. This is where communication between the Bathurst race organisers, some of which are in Bathurst still, but the World Super Tour franchise have admitted a mistake had been made. Michael Swinnerton alongside me might not have been one of the more vociferous few, as he's not got a team in the game for this season, focusing on the European Championship. We might get round to that at some point, but is the driver manager of Anthony Ingram. Um, to his knowledge, that was a mistake on Ingram's part, but when we look at the replays again, it was a lot more deliberate, wasn't it, from Ayalo? But your thoughts on what might have, or what should have happened for leading into race two? Things should have been different for race two, shouldn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. The nail in the coffin, as I believe it was for Aiello, was the onboard footage where you could see Aiello's hands on the steering wheel turn left into the Volvo to his left, which is what then
Whilst
caused
in
the
a straight
spin.
line on the
Yes,
fastest
whilst
part of
going
the
down
circuit.
one of the straightest, yes, fastest straights on the track. Um, Personally, I'm of the view of what's been done has been done. At least some action has been taken. It could have been worse. They could have just said, no, that was completely legit, allowed Aiello to have 2 race wins in one weekend, come away with a giant haul of points, and, you know, uh, uh, send a particularly rude message to Volvo in that case. So at least something has happened. Yes, I can understand people's arguments about it should have happened quicker, it should have messed around with the top 10 reverse grid order, so on and so forth. But personally, I'm of the view of like, there's no point crying over spilt milk. At least something has been done about it. So Aiello has been given a slap on the wrist. They now have to deal with that moving forwards because instead of having a giant haul of points, Aiello has now only got half as many points from that race weekend because, of course, the disqualification counts for a 20th place finish. So that's put a serious dent into his championship hopes. You know, Renault
Serious
now basically have
dent.
to just back Mark Gasho for the driver's
That's it.
title.
The serious dent is effectively double the gap to BMW in second place after round two. But as you as you can almost see from the glare, it's a Alpha front row alongside Thompson, still there or thereabouts, but not got a win in. Neither of them have a win in this season because Renault have managed to claw something from midfield to a degree. Fisichella and Wittmann have the racing line. No doubt they'll be one to turn one here. Good call from some of the privateers as well in the top 10, as we've had some excitement in the past. Let's see what the double final apex does, as does the Istanbul turns and the Tarquini chicane. For the fourth time running, Dragon Trail Gardens, away we go. The BMW of Weber off the line like a flash, as is Sophia Schneider. Mirrors of season 3, perhaps, between Alpha and BMW, but Thompson's still there. Unfortunately, visibly a poorer start from anyone's perspective, but there's Duma in the Privateer Alpha getting the job done as well, as everyone's safely through the Tarquini chicane.
Yeah, ILO just clipping the curb a little bit there, thus the name of the Tarquini chicane, with that sausage curb right on the apex there.
We got Palou had a quick cheeky glance to the right hand side of the track, trying to get past Lammers there. Fairly almost stagnant through the hairpin for lap 1. Normally one of the busier parts of the track, but long way to, well, 20 to 25 minutes of racing to go, and got to be in it to win it, and therefore well behaved it is through that particular sector.
Yeah, give it time, they'll get there. But of course, the other thing is you know, as we've already discussed with the ILO penalty, it's going to put everybody else on tenterhooks as to just
that's it.
How much argy-bargy can they get away with? Can they still get away with what they're used to doing with each other? Do they have to be a little bit more, you know, careful about where they place the car?
With this double apex, I share, this first one has been the site of many a mismanaged turn or battle for position in recent visits to the venue.
Yeah, if you remember last year, Fisichella got a little bit sideways, and then Ingram, in my Mazda, accidentally got into his quarter panel and sent him round.
A lot of people might be asking, why aren't we on the larger circuit? This one has lent itself, like the narrowness and perhaps the sort of car behavioural aspects of it. This leans in favour of touring car racing, whereas the sort of GT sports car single-seater racing bodes well for the seaside variant, much further up the hill.
Yeah, and it's still a fairly long lap round here. Like, just because the track is shorter doesn't mean it takes a while to get round here, because of course you've got so many slow speed corners and a lot of, like, you know, sections that are a little bit start-stop, so you do end up doing, you know, lap times that are in the 1:40 here.
I just dare to think what would happen through the seaside chicane before the tunnel.
Oh.
Thankfully, we've not had to worry about that. Palou and Lammers having their personal battle since lap 1, about to head to Istanbul, and the triple right-hander here.
Yeah, they've got to be careful, because of course there is the ubiquitous Renault that has been the upset of this season so far, and it's right there in 9th.
Now, Gasho further back might have been held up by Salo, who I think had a brief glimpse of it. He didn't see it well enough, but I'm pretty sure that car had a massive wobble on. As
there's
it
another
there.
one.
I could almost see it happening, but I wasn't too sure. So that's vindicated that theory.
Yeah,
here's the Volkswagen
proof.
of Wirtz. Now bearing down on that erstwhile Finn.
Yeah, Wirtz is going to have the momentum coming into turn 1 here. Isn't quite close enough to make anything of it, though.
Whilst qualifying can do wonders, I guess Palou, maybe Palou as well. Palou and Salo might have handling behavioural issues since the switch from qualifying to the race. And here are the Renault's line of stern as they begin to power through, much like they did at Interlagos, much like they did at Bathurst. Here's Lammers down the inside for Aiello, up to 7th. Maybe Lammers may want to 1 minute and bit of that.
Lammers gave just enough room for Aiello to take the apex. Oh, that was a little shunt.
Well, let's point fingers, shall we? But good move, all things considered. Lammers, I was thinking Gasho was going to get through that. Lammers looked like he bailed out of even battling Gasho for position, almost in sympathy for the Renault team.
It looked like Lammers had a little bit of moment of oversteer in the car, so he had to sort of take a minute to gather it all up again, which is what's allowed the gap there between Lammers and Aiello already on the back of Dumas there.
The guys on the Honda pit wall might want to have a word. Don't be too generous to the guys running away with the championship so far. Thankfully, he is still ahead of Gasho. Dumas doing well to block Ayalo in the slowest regions of the track, but there's a long straight coming up. That Renault has been very good in a straight line, except for that one time. Let's try not to dwell on it too much. You fall into that groove, you can't help yourself. So Thompson holding up what is effectively 5th on down as Schneider makes a move. Not the position gained there. Maybe it's on for the hairpin if they've been well behaved through that particular curb on the chicane.
Yeah,
Schneider got the power.
She's possibly close enough to do a dive bomb into the hairpin. I don't know whether she'll be brave enough. Oh, very late.
Very clever. I mean, it should have been a little bit earlier. The move, like everything she did in that move was great, just a fraction of a second too late, perhaps.
Yeah, the going late had the element of surprise, so I can see what she was thinking there as Hello just goes round the outside of Dumas like it's nothing.
Making up for some bad, if not bad reputation thrust upon him, even though the cameras show a deliberate turn on a straight line. Here's another one, but looks like he's not got the speed to get on Schneider's case. Dumas might be all over the back of it. Decent strand. Well, we've seen it happen before, and what is Lammers thinking? Well, we could easily ask that of the guys that have been around you in previous World and European iterations of the championship. We'll have to find out one, because this is...
I think it's down to the front wheel drives having lift off oversteer on corner entry. It's Aiello round the outside again. There is no stopping that Renault, is there? But yeah, that penultimate corner is where it's at the top, like the apex is at the end of a crest. You're going up top of a hill and then you flatten out as you need to turn. It shifts the weight around in the car in a weird way, which a lot of drivers, instead of just rolling with the oversteer, prefer to just stomp on the brake and just kill it dead, just to rein the car back within their grip levels, which is what then causes the dead stop on the apex there.
I know you probably don't want me to quote football. I won't name names here. The behaviour that Aiello is presenting us with is very much similar to a footballer in the 80s who did something on pitch that might have been considered questionable. Only like 5 minutes into that match later had he pulled off one of the best moves of the match. I guess Aiello is doing the same thing, but only a weekend later, by pulling off some of these miraculous moves, especially on the outside of Istanbul on Thompson. That would have been miraculous if that had been pulled off. The Renault has got the power, let's not avoid that, but the fact that he's making the moves around the outside rather than, down the straight line as if he's got a DRS or a push to pass on him is just, storybook. These are some fantastic moves he's performing to make up for the error of his ways in the previous meeting.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's doing the sensible thing of essentially just putting his car where the others aren't, because he's got the grip to do so. And it's worked so far, getting around the three cars behind him. Thompson's putting up a little bit more of a fight though, which is nice to see.
At least
Not sure how long it'll last though. Bit of curb abuse there.
This might actually make a dent in Renault's championship hopes then, if Thompson is going to be the cork in the bottle for not just Aiello but everyone else behind him, because Webber, Wittmann and Fisichella are just gone. They're an apex or two further ahead. Aiello down the inside of Thompson then, position for oxygen in front. Let's chow down on that and get to P3 as soon as possible from Aiello's mindset. Lammers and Dumas now falling a little bit further back. Gasho still at 9th.
Yeah, it'll
So
be interesting to see what kind of lap times Aiello pulls. I assume he's going to take fastest lap of the race now that he's got the clean air in front of him. Surprised at Gasho not being able to find his way through the traffic as easily as Aiello, though. Makes me think they've got different setups on, and one car is a little bit nicer in the corners than the other.
speaking of making up for lost time, Ingram had a bad qualifying. Well, Volvo had a bad qualifying. Here he's in 10th, so guaranteed P1 if ever there was one. Just got to wait for that, but no doubt in race 1 he's going to want better than that, especially if he's getting on Gasho as he is right now. We didn't see him in shot earlier, but that is definitely a Volvo on the move.
He is closing in on that train in front of him, and there is the fastest lap from Aiello, just as I predicted.
Clean track in front, clear track in front. Gasho now ahead of Duma, and here is the other Alpha counterpart leading the race, Fisichella and teammate Wittmann. It's an Alpha 1-2, very close to home.
Well, we've seen Alpha do formation flying in the past, but notably at Maggiore in Deep Forest, so this is a first for them in that regard.
And then Webber wanting to spoil the party too. He's got some making up to do. Title defence on the line as well.
Yeah, if there's one thing we've learned from Jamie Webber, even back when he was racing for a privateer team, is you actually can't count him out in anything ever. It doesn't matter where he starts on the grid, he'll probably find his way to the sharp end at some point, and even if he doesn't get there by race 1, he'll benefit from the reverse grid and be there for race 2.
And one of the more chipper competitors during what was a very grey period for BMW in that second season, where they couldn't get anything right to start off with, having hired Webber from his performance in the DHL team, who now run Dumas. They were expecting a lot from Webber then, but thankfully he's did that last season most definitely, and still trying to do that early into this season 4 of the World Supers. Schneider still 6th. Gasho now ahead of Lamas, so that's reflecting what Aiello's doing, if a little bit later, if a little bit slower perhaps, because Aiello still, that's the fastest lap still there. Ingram up to 9th, and you can see him in shot just behind the Lamas Honda.
Yeah, Gasho is able to make his way through the traffic, just not at the same pace. So it wouldn't surprise me that we end up seeing this Renault in front of Schneider and Thompson in front here. Don't know if they'll quite catch the top 3 in time, considering we're already into lap 8. But given the insane speed these two cars have shown so far this year, I would put that one down to a never say never situation.
Never say never. Oops, said it twice. So, Thompson, Schneider, Gasho approaching the Istanbul turns. Lammers with a wobble on.
Oh!
And there goes Ingram for a second weekend running. That might not have been as deliberate as the previous weekend.
No, that was far more of a racing incident. But that was a
sympathetic
Lammers in front
wobble
having his deja vu moment. Yeah, Ingram got all the way up to the back bumper. Lammers went defensive, carried too much speed into the corner, and then
that is, from our perspective, most definitely a racing incident, and no doubt
he
the
just
race
had nowhere to go.
Well.
Didn't have the space to react there and get he got on the brakes, but it wasn't enough, and it just bounced off the Honda in front. Disappointing.
Schneider wanted to get a move
Oh my god!
The gloves are definitely off after Bathurst from certain drivers. Maybe we are seeing those that were very vociferous at Bathurst starting to get their claws out in front of Aiello, no less as well. Actually, no, that's Gasho. Whoops.
Still a Renault.
He's further ahead. It is still a Renault.
But that was a good example of what I was talking about earlier, with the penultimate turn being the apex on top of a crest, so the car is shifting its weight in a weird way. We saw how Thompson got really sideways there, basically because of it. Because the way his car is set up and the way that corner is, it encourages that kind of oversteer in front-wheel drive cars.
And despite the top three firing away from fourth position, this has been a very quick one indeed. 5 to go, well 4.5 to go.
Although Webber is now up to second, he's spoilt the Alpha 1-2 party.
And you wonder, think, if he's going to be gaining on Fisichella, if this is the form, if this is the title defence finally kicking into gear.
Yeah, possibly. Though Fisichella put up his own, a decent campaign of his own last season, hence why he's got car number 3 there. These two cars are very evenly matched. They both have slightly longer wheelbases. They both have a 6-cylinder engine in them.
And a lot of touring car pedigree, hence their top of the pile previous year, previous season. Renault with the work to do, being so-called touring car experts themselves. They have set up their stall very early and very dominantly. But it looks as if we're going to see a new winner for Season 4, and that can only be a good thing. Gasho now up to 6th.
There's a bit of a gap between Gasho and Schneider. I don't doubt he'll close that distance. Curb abuse notwithstanding.
We were expecting Honda to be up there and thereabouts. I think Renault have spoiled that particular party. Thompson, we kind of saw him as, you know, the season favourite early on, but we might have to change our opinion when we get to the halfway season and get a review of that. Lammers with a very good performance in his second year. Dumas doing very well in the second year of the Alpha, being run in privateer hands as well. Ingram closing back in after those mistakes earlier on, so they haven't really lost position. That's a good recovery.
A full spin and he's already back into 10th place.
But the field now spread out. It looks like Palou being a traffic jam for the back markers then. Very unlikely to be lapped with this close to go. Kubica 13th, one of his better performances. Volkswagen as a factory effort, and maybe Volvo scratching their heads. Bianchi, that's their debut in the privateer Ford. Back of the pack. So with the top 3 now across the line with Wittmann there. Schneider closing in on a yellow there, perhaps?
Yeah, Schneider is catching the Renault in front. Have we found it? Well, there's Gasho, though. Yeah. I was about to say, have we found a weakness in this Megane? But maybe not. Gasho sends it down the inside. Relegates the BMW back to 6th place again.
Being poked by the Gasho stick. But not motivated with the yellow carrot. However,
Schneider fighting back, and there's some curb abuse. Ooh, chops the nose in front of the chops the nose of the BMW.
Still not enough to get Schneider back into 5th position. As the final laps draw in, the on-field, on-track battles start to stagnate somewhat. Still a very close top 2. I think the battles are, you know, from Palou on down, but then of course Webber wants to see Fisichella make some kind of mistake, pressuring him. It's definitely in the mirror shot of Fisichella.
There's a very good drive from Fisichella just to not give in to that pressure, not open up the door in any way, make sure that he maintains enough of a gap between him and Webber to make sure that, you know, there's no potential of any kind of dive bomb down at the hairpin or anything.
Because you'd want to keep this going. No one else has led this race. Fisichella from the lights. The poorest performance really was Thompson, front row start, down to 7th.
Yeah, that seems to be the way with Honda. I've noticed this. I noticed this a lot last season as well, since they brought in that FL5 Civic. It qualifies really, really well, and they can't quite transfer that qualifying pace over to race pace, and they do tend to go backwards a little bit in races. Not unlike Volkswagen when they used to run the Sirocco, of course.
Most definitely. Volkswagen running the Golf for another season. They're expecting to do better, but still, as you can see, they're not in the top 8.
One of them is outside the points even, so this is definitely not the race they want, the race or the weekend they wanted. Once again, they're chasing the setup on that car because it doesn't have anywhere near enough mid-corner rotation for them to be happy with it.
And we're about to get into the final lap here. Schneider starting to lose ground on Aiello as Gasho's gone ahead there. So team
Has
orders
indeed.
might have just been thrown down because Gasho is closing in on Wittmann there. So thankfully, dare I jinx this, it's not going to be a Renault win for this race at least.
No, but it
But
could be
they
a
might
Renault
still get on the
podium because
podium.
Gasho is right there. Wittmann now needs to drive incredibly defensively.
But already, there's the line. You can see the alternate line. Bit of a push, maybe. But
I think there was
Gasho.
daylight between those two cars. Whitman just got the line wrong. That's some curb
Oh,
abuse.
that's
That's
a massive
ruined their
hobble on.
momentum going down the straight. That's going to allow Schneider to come back at Aiello at least. Be a bit of a spanner in the works for Renault here, and it's given Whitman valuable breathing room.
I didn't hear it, but I'm pretty sure there were some cheers from the crowd at that chicane. Thankfully, we don't see a Renault winning. Let's not see that happen again. No matter what errors are made, no matter what collisions happen. Schneider closing down on Aiello, but there's an alternate line there and some marbles. That's going to hold Sophia up. Gasho wanting to get that podium again. Has managed to gain back on Wittmann. Istanbul turns here. I don't think it's an overtaking spot, but the mistakes can be made. We've seen it earlier.
Yeah. And we
And then
saw
a long straight.
this time last year when we were here, we saw a Renault get all kinds of crossed up into the Istanbul complex there and end up in the barrier.
Let's
So
hope the
it is
Renaults don't get
possible.
crossed up with each other. Final turn. Fisichella, we missed it. Fisichella across the line. That's going to be a very happy Alpha camp. But who's going to get the final spot? Wittmann on track advantage. Renault with the power. Is it going to be a photo finish across the line? No, that Renault's too far back. And Alpha, not a 1-2, but both on the podium. And therefore, normal service to a degree has been resumed. Ingram up to 7th from the back of the pack and a spin. Drive of the race, no doubt. Thompson down to 8th. Lama's teammate 9th. Not Honda's day, well, not Volkswagen's day either. And that makes up for a rather, well, we'll have to see what race 2 does, of course, but the mood after Bathurst in the paddock wasn't the best of days. This definitely how the tables have turned and a good mood to be seen in the paddock from here. I know that when Sonny goes has a word with Ingram about his performances between the races. But yeah, for the first 8 laps, gone in a flash, more or less. We were commentating on it, but it felt like a minute had elapsed.
Yeah, absolutely. It caught me by surprise as well. It was, Fisichella wasted zero time pulling away from the rest of the field there, and he managed to make it stick.
And therefore, Wittmann and Fisichella back where they feel they belong. Fisichella gets the win in Webber with a very good second, and therefore Renault with a bit of an easier job to do in the reverse grid, knowing that they are still in the mid pack ahead of the top three. And we're going to see you later. Good racing, everyone.